the strong ones. We survived. So the way we're going to do it at this point is I've got an outline. If you want me to go through part of it, then I will, but since there are so few people in here, I am very extremely able to simply sit here and talk individually with each and every one of you, answer your questions personally, and it be just like a discussion. I don't have to, go over a certain speech and give everybody a certain, amount of information because I can't answer all of you individually, because I can't. So, the topic here is stand-up material, and how to get started in stand-up comedy. Now let's have a discussion. I can tell you some of the things that. Is there music coming out of that speaker?
Is there?
Nope. But I thought there was for a second. I could have sworn I heard some metal coming out of there. It's in my head.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what. Until and unless this thing gets, more people pile in here,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna come down here. I don't need a damn table and microphone. I heard it again.
When you go back over there.
Okay, no, it's bouncing. It's from outside. It's bouncing off some stuff. All right. So I'm gonna sit here. You guys back there, if you want to gather around closer, please do. Because we're just gonna have ourselves a time. All right. So I'll tell you what I know and what I've experienced in my days of actually doing comedy. As a hobby or, God forbid, as a profession. One thing I tell people generally is the first thing that happens when you decide you want to do comedy for a living is get an ice pick and stick it in your head. The entertainment industry is pretty brutal. However, if it's something that you really, really want to do, then the first thing you have to consider is, well, there are three things. There's the material, and there's the performance. You got to have both of those. If you don't have either of those, then it's not going to go over. Your material, the first thing you have to ask yourself, because I've seen a lot of people fail at this, is who are you wanting to entertain? The reason why I say that is because I've seen there have been a lot of people open up to me in the furry fandom and in not the furry fandom, mainstream places. And their goal has been to entertain themselves. I had one guy once, and he opened up for me 2 years in a row. Don't know how I got to the second year. But his main, for instance, one of his segments was to actually flip his phone open and say, guess what? My mother's birthday is tomorrow. I'm going to dial her. I want everyone to sing happy birthday to her. This was apparently comedy. So he did that, and he had everybody singing happy birthday. And then he had on like about 12 different t-shirts, which he took off, and there was writing on them, and it made a whole sentence. And then he threw old Twinkies in the audience, and that was his, he was having a ball. He was having a load of fun. I would much rather have, hang on. Yes, I would much rather have this. This was left for Kage. Kage hates red wine, so he didn't drink it. I was going to, I would trade you.
I just lost.
Sorry. Nice. Sweet. Love.
When we first wanted to spread the love. There's enough whiskey people buy.
Skull. Oh, I was about to.
Oh, all right.
I like it. What about that?
Yeah.
I tried it.
I'm not a wine person.
Okay.
Except when I'm playing.
No, go dump it on Kage. Go dump it on Kage. Go dump it all over Kage. He'll love it. So, yeah, alcohol, I'll drink anything. So, this person was, he did not last long. Anybody that, gets up there and they're up there for simply their own amusement, they're telling jokes that makes themselves laugh and nobody else, they're not going to last long. Sometimes when you're writing comedy, you have to honestly stop and think, all right, this joke is funny to me, but is it going to be funny to them? Because your audience, that's the point. That's the whole point, is the audience that you're making happy. If you think it's hilarious, but honestly it's not going to make them laugh, then there's no point in it. There's no point in it. You're there for them. So sometimes you do have to sacrifice, what you think is funny for what you believe is going to be more universally funny in the room, which is kind of sad sometimes. I've had to sacrifice jokes that I thought that were hilarious to me, and went more with something that was going to be more universally accepted. Right now, I had done a lot of comedy in the mainstream circuit in Los Angeles. I performed at the Comedy Stop, Comedy Store, the Improv over there. And you go over there and you see now, and there's a lot of this, a lot of insult comics. And I personally find that to be one of the lowest forms of comedy out there. Because, they just stand on the stage. They may have one segment of prepared material, and the rest of the time, they'll sit there and they'll look down to the audience, and then they'll just start picking at everything they can possibly find, trying to be quick-witted. And the problem is, this really isn't fun for anyone. It's definitely not fun for the person who's being made fun of. And the psychology behind the stand-up comic act is there has to be a separation between audience and performer. The audience, they don't want to be a part of the show. They're sitting down there. They don't want to be a part of that. They want to sit back and they want to watch. And when you step forward and get in their face and try and drag them into being part of the show, whether or not they want it, that makes people uncomfortable. There are some comedy clubs now in Los Angeles that are actually saying, okay, no insult comics. Don't do it anymore. We don't want it here. Because people don't like that, and they walk out. And unfortunately, the way it works in business and comedy is that if you're selling less beer, then, because that's what they want in comedy, is they want you to sell more drinks. So if people are walking out, they can't buy booze, and if they can't buy booze, then they don't want you on the stage anymore. So they're saying no to insult comics in a lot of places. Some places still have them, and it really was a big thing for a good long time, but it's starting to go downhill again. Insult comedy is not. It's not the way to go. It's too easy, it's cheap, and it makes people uncomfortable, and it honestly really only amuses the person who's on stage. Again, entertaining themselves above the audience, which shouldn't happen. Now, people ask me a lot, how did you come up with your subject? How did you come up with this idea? How are you coming up with your material? And there are plenty of ways to do it. You can come up with material based on a story in your life that happened. You can come up with it based on an observation that you have. Personally, I'm usually an observational monologist, which means that I observe society, politics, religion, and I take those observations and I try to compare them with other things that are pretty much the same in our everyday lives that can show us how ridiculous that is. That's my forte. I love doing that. But either way, no matter what you pick, I've seen some really, really great storytellers. They get up on stage and they'll have a great story about, this time that them and their buddy got together and there was a thing in the trunk of their car, but they rode and it spewed and they tell the story very great, but very good at addressing the audience, but they don't think much about the imagery, what they're saying. You can tell a story and then wind up, having this moment, well, you had to have been there. that doesn't get away. You can't do that in stand-up comedy. You have to actually emote this to them. You have to make them feel like they were there. And so you always have to ask yourself questions when you find a subject. And it should always be a very simple thing. And this is the most elusive part about any art, is keeping it simple, keeping it relatable. It's really easy to get complicated. What you want to do is you want to keep a simple idea that everyone can relate to. And you need to go in that direction, but when you're doing that, you always want to ask yourself questions about your material. I mean, question every single thing about what you're saying, about the images that you're giving away. If you had a rough flight, say I had a rough flight here, okay? The plane was bouncing around. That's what I could say. Yeah, I had a really rough flight here. The plane was bouncing all over the place. Well, that's a good description, and it gives everybody the idea that I had a rough flight here, but how can we make that comedy? You know, how can we turn that into a joke? And that's where we have to start asking ourselves questions about the flight. It's like, okay, it was bouncy. Like what? What would cause the flight to be bouncy? How do we want this to go? You know, is it, I was on a flight and on the way here, you know, it was like, you know, the plane was getting gang banged by a group of dragons on the way. You know, you get some visual image in your head about why the plane was bouncy, or about how bouncy it was, and you ask yourself questions and you visualize it. You describe the visualization that you have of this. You can say, yeah, the plane was bouncy, but that's not enough. You gotta, if you're going to do comedy, you have to ask yourself all kinds of questions about everything that you want to say. And say, how can we emote this better? How can we describe this better? As far in a comedy sense, and in that way, you can take a simple situation like I'm trying to think of an example right now. I may not be able to come up with one off the top of my head, but you can take a simple situation and turn it into something that is actually visual and that makes people laugh because they're picturing what you're telling them to picture, And that's a really important thing in comedy, is just to take the ordinary, the relatable, and describe it in ways that they've never thought of before. Do keep it simple, do ask questions, that's pretty much all. Hey, I covered all this, and I didn't even look up my thing. So, nice Marriott Hotel notepads here. Nice, I like these. I think I'll order some. Now, when you have your material, and you will eventually get it. And by the way, it doesn't matter how much it seems like, and other than insult comics and obviously improv events, it doesn't matter how much it seems like a comedian is just walking on stage and just talking to you. Every comic, whether or not you believe it, has material. It's in their head. They know what it is. They've probably done it 100 times. The trick is to make it look like you haven't done it 100 times. That's where the acting comes in. You have to actually do something that, in some cases, you're absolutely sick of saying because you've done it so many times, and make it look like you just walked on stage and this just came out of your mouth. That's what you have to be able to do that. It's not hard. Practice a little bit, but so everybody is when you want material, you've got to write the material. You've got to have the material there. You have to have it in your head. The first thing that people will say is, well, where can I get practice? Where can I perform this? Because in any art, you have to practice. This visual art, music, anything, you have to practice this art. Unfortunately, when it comes to comedy, that's really hard because, like I was saying the other day, if you're a graphic artist, all you have to do is pick up another sheet of paper. If you're a music artist, all you have to do is start another recording. When you're a comic, you can't just summon up another audience, unless of course you're a Satanist and you're in with a lot of demons and you can just go, and there they are. And even then, they're not going to laugh at much because they're on fire and in torment. So don't even count them. So it's really, really hard. You've got to find places where you can perform and practice this, because you can get up there, and I still to this day this happens. I can get up there, and the joke that I'm really disappointed in my show this year. I thought this would kill people, and so far I've done the show 3 times, and I get a little bit of a. But I thought this would slay, man. I was certain that this would knock everybody over. Is when I'm talking about the couch, and about how uncomfortable it was, and about how on some magical night in the '80s, 2 rhinos with pizza and soda pop met up with Chester Cheetah. They kind of fell in love, and they found a couch, somewhere in an alley. And I swear to God, this took me hours to come up with. And then they had a 3-way Mongolian tube steak rodeo on it. I thought that would lay everyone out. Didn't. It just didn't. It didn't catch on this time. You never can really tell. You got to practice this stuff. Other things, by the way, that I didn't think would be so funny. I thought, yeah, that would be a little bit of a ha-ha. Boom! When I'm going on the comparisons about how we're crazy, about we're a couple of tacos short of Fiesta platter. We're a few wives short of a Mormon family here. We're the one that I didn't expect this. If you actually go online and see the first time I performed at Anthrocon, I'm ready to continue going on, but I say, we're a couple of LA cops short of a human rights violation. Bam! And everybody went down, and I'm like taking a breath to go to my next sentence, and I had to pause because I'm like, balls. Okay. I guess that was a good one. I didn't, and so far every time that has just laid everybody out, and I didn't quite expect that much reaction from it. So you have to have the practice. You have to know, sometimes even after, decades of doing this, you're going to have some things that you don't quite expect. Some people will say, get in front of friends, do it in front of your friends. That's good practice for you, to being in front of people. I don't think it's really an honest reaction, because if they're your friends, they're probably going to be more likely to laugh at what you're saying than an audience would. But it's still good practice for you being in front of people. Best place that you can actually practice, and hopefully you're in a larger town for this, is at open mic nights. You go to open mic nights, they'll usually give you 5 to 7 minutes a pop. And go up there and you do this consistently. And in general, what I found is that people who get up and do open mic nights and can make people laugh, and a lot of times they'll work up from not really knowing what's funny to actually becoming, that they begin to learn what jokes are going to work and what isn't. If they do that like on a weekly basis for a while, the comedy club will generally go to them and say, hey, you've been doing this for a while, you're selling shows, people are actually coming to see you here because you're funny, why don't we give you your own show? And they'll give you a chunk out of, they'll let you open on Fridays and Saturdays in front of bigger acts, and from that point you just work on up and up and up. And believe it or not, some of the country's most beloved actors and comedians started out that way. David Letterman, did you know that? David Letterman actually started out as a comic who just was doing open mic nights and wound up getting a position and going further and further until he got into this, form of stardom. And then I believe what was it, NBC came to him and said, hey, why don't you do a show? And he's done that for 40 years now, just recently retired. I can Bill Murray, Richard Pryor, I can Whoopi Goldberg. There's tons of them. I can go on and on and on. And they've all started from just going up and doing open mic nights at first, and then hey, you're consistent with this. You make people consistently laugh. Jim Carrey, another one. I've stood on stages where those guys performed. When they were starting out. It was really weird the first time I got up there because I was backstage, and they had this wonderful green room that was only there because Richard Pryor told them to build it. And they're like, okay, Richard Pryor, we'll build it. And they built it, and I'm sitting back there, and I'm looking at this piano. And it's a tiny little piano, it's a little table, and it's all made out of mirrors. And it's like this little mirror piano that's a table. And guy comes back, works, he's older than Jesus. He comes back and he's, all right, you all ready? Okay. And I'm looking at this table, I'm like, what's with the damn mirror piano? And he's like, see that? And I looked, he pointed at some scratches that were on the top of the mirror. It's like, it's where Sam Kinison used to do blow off this thing back in the day. And I'm sitting there going, oh, cool, man. And I walk out on stage, and you see practically the boot prints of Richard Pryor and Whoopi Goldberg and Robin Williams, and you're on the same stage, and it's like, cool, man. So you get this sense of of the history when you're doing that, and you wind up getting that far. It starts to kind of make a difference to you because you're like, wow, I'm really in the community here. I'm really doing something. But like I said, you do have to work at it. It's not something that you just. It's very hard to just get it overnight. You've got to practice, just like anything else. And the more you practice, the better you get. Next on my notes, what? Oh yeah, some people. One thing that's important is when you're pulling the cork off this bottle to breathe in before you take a drink. I've seen some people get up and they try to force themselves into being a style that doesn't fit them. Knew a guy. This guy was brilliant. He was my roommate for a short time. He needed he needed a place to stay, and so we roomed for a while. This guy would get up every morning, and he would just be, he'd wake himself up by just doing bits of comedy routines that he'd heard from really educated guy, from the old Abbott and Costello show on radio, and he'd just sit there and do it back and forth. And this guy was really on top of things, but he was this skinny, geeky-looking kid, and he, for all the world, was trying to be this, angry protagonist type, and it didn't fit him. It didn't fit his personality when he wasn't on stage. It didn't fit his look. How many of you guys remember Stephen Wright? Stephen Wright. How many people have heard of Mitch Hedberg? Okay, more. Okay. Imagine the Mitch Hedberg type. You got Stephen Wright, Mitch Hedberg were kind of in the same categories, because you'd have both these guys would go up there and they would just have this microphone. And they'd walk up and be like, "Hello, ladies and gentlemen." Good use of the mic.
Well, so can't wait to get off stage today because I've got a roll of lifesavers in my pocket. The next one is pineapple.
That was their style. That's how they did it. And they had the look for it. Mitch Hedberg was amazing in that he would tell 500 jokes in 1 hour, and they were all really quick. They were all very. He used to have this mop of hair, and he'd go and stick the microphone in the hair, and he'd be like,
I like the escalator, because the escalator can never be broke. It can just become stairs.
and that was, and then next joke, bam, you just go, to another one, and just over and over. It's like,
I hate wearing a turtleneck sweater. It's like being choked by a really weak guy.
Next one, bam, and people would laugh, and he would do that. And this guy, he had more of a look and an attitude in his life, like that's what he should have been going for. But he didn't want to do that. He wanted to go more for the aggressive, ranty type of thing. Like, I think he might have been inspired a little bit by me and Kage. I tried to convince him, dude, no, you need to find your own style. You gotta get up there and you gotta find your own flow with your own personality. Because if you're trying to be a completely different personality than what you are, it's not going to work too well. You're not going to come off as believable. You're not going to be able to, actually flow on stage and be yourself in a way. You're going to have to constantly just be doing a major crazy act. And a comedy show is an act, obviously, but you've got to have something in your act and in your character that relates to you personally, so that you can, continue to flow with this kind of thing. And he never actually did that. He wound up crumbling to the pressure. Saw the guy, he turned into a serious alcoholic because he was getting a lot of attention. The attention was too much for him, and he wound up getting deep into alcohol, and he kind of lost it, which is, yeah, sad to say. At least he didn't kill himself doing that. That's what Mitch Hedberg did. The pressure got to him. He was becoming a major celebrity, and he wound up overdosing and dying. Jim Belushi, I can count. So many people have done that. The pressure just gets to them. That's another thing. If you don't, I know there's a lot of people who want positive attention and they want to actually make people happy. But if you are not prepared for a lot of attention and having to deal with people and having to talk to people, don't do it, because you're going to have a lot of interaction. And if that kind of thing, can eventually wear you down or is threatening to you in some way, then I don't suggest you do it, because it can become overwhelming. My husband can tell you about the last 2 years ago at Anthrocon, when I came back home and my hand was black and blue. It was like this purple and red color all through here from shaking hands with people. And that's all. I just shook hands with that many people. I love talking to people. I love talking with fans. I love talking with people. I enjoy the interaction. I love just dealing with people and hanging out with them. And if you don't love that kind of thing, I don't suggest it, because I've known, the guy that I was just talking about, he was a shut-in. He didn't generally like people, but at the same time he wanted attention, but he only wanted it when he wanted it, and he didn't want it when he didn't. And then once he got out there and started actually, people started liking him, he was getting attention at times and in places that he didn't want it anymore, and it started actually dragging him down a bit, and he kind of he fell off the edge, which was unfortunate, because he was really cool. He was really good. Now, one of the things that everybody asks me about is what if I screw up? What do I do when I screw up? That's not even a legit question, because there's not a what if I screw up. You are going to screw up. You're going to make a mistake. People, think that it's the end of the world. What if I say a wrong word? If I forget something? It's going to happen. It definitely will happen. There's no way around that. It will always happen, probably at every show. I think I forget at least a little something at every show that I do, or screw up or trip over my word or whatever, something I'm saying. That's not something that is an option. It will happen every time. You can't do an hour of monologue perfectly, ever. It's not going to happen. So recovering from mistakes is that's a big thing. And the best way to do it is not to pretend like it didn't happen. A lot of brand new comics like to pretend like they screw up and they go, like I was saying, and they like to pretend it didn't happen. But when they do that, the audience actually notices it more. Because they'll be like, oh, he screwed up. Oh, he knows he screwed up. Oh, I saw that screw up. Oh, damn, he's embarrassed. Oh, look at him, he's embarrassed. Don't do that. When you screw up, best thing you can do is make a joke out of your own screw up. Completely, just come out with it. Acknowledge it. Wow, I just boned that. Let me just go ahead and just turn around and just, there was that joke right there. Just blew it all over the wall. So, the best thing you can do is just simply acknowledge it, say I screwed up, and don't think that the audience is not going to hate you. The record is not going to go whoop and scratch, and there's not going to be that one cool sound effect of the audience going, oh, and looking at you, and everybody turns to you and, you sucked. We hate you now. That's what it feels like they're going to do. But they're not going to do that. They never do that. If you screw up, they're like, okay, he screwed up. They always know you screwed up. Now, how did he deal with it? That's what they really want to, that's what counts to them, is how he dealt with the screw up. Like, see, I just spat in my face. Now, I can pretend that didn't happen, but fact is, I'm still, recovering from that, penis I just sucked a few minutes ago, and it just, I'm sorry, but I'm so gay. So, that, and like literally that was not, that was a goof. I did that, and I could have just pretended that didn't happen, but you guys saw it. I know you saw it. Why deny that it happened? Why not just make another joke out of it and get some more fun out of it, right? That's the best way to handle mistakes, because they're going to happen, and don't be afraid that the audience is going to hate you. It's like, I did that thing. Do you guys hate me?
Yes.
See, I was about to say, now one of you said yes, and you did. Thank you very much for that. You caught me off guard. I love that. But that's what I'm talking about. A lot of people get up there, they're nervous. I would suggest in the beginning, a little tip, leave the mic on the mic stand until you get comfortable with it, because people who at first take the mic off the mic stand, you can literally physically see them shaking the mic, because they're very nervous. You can see the mic shaking. So at first, maybe leave it on the stand, and so you can get up there and not be shaking, because it doesn't matter if you're confident in your material or not. You get up there in front of people, you can be as confident as in your material as you hope to be, but it's a different story when that curtain opens, man, and it's like you walk out there and it's like, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, my name is... You will sometimes have a complete tabula rasa, wonderful German word, which means your mind gets wiped. My very first performance, I memorized it for a good 2 months. Oh, I had it in my head. I could do it in my sleep. Got up on stage. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Gone. All of it gone. Did not know where to go. It was all gone. I had an hour performance to do. It was all gone. That will happen. That simply will happen. It's going to happen to everybody. Get over that after a while. It doesn't happen anymore. But it's going to happen. When it does, make sure you have a little card, a little cue card. Write down all the subjects that, the words that will trigger your memory to say, oh, this is what I was going to talk about there, here, and here, and here. And, just whip out the card, look at it. I'm just going to blame you for doing that. I'm just going to blame you. Let me look at my card. Oh, okay. That's what we got to do. Yeah, nobody's going to hate you for being nervous, and nobody's going to hate you for screwing up. And that's what you'll eventually learn. But at first, yeah, that's the main point of nervousness. Let me check out my... Holy balls! I went over time, didn't I? Okay, is there anyone here right now who's in here for the starting up a YouTube channel? You're here for that?
Yeah.
You're here for that too? So all the people who are in here for this panel were in here for the next panel too? Well, why don't we just combine the shit out of them? We'll just combine them then.
Wow.
It's already been over. So I was going to ask questions about the last panel, and well, you know what? We'll just kind of merge that orgy style into the next panel and start talking about how to start up a YouTube channel at the same time. Yes, Xander.
I just had one quick question.
Yeah.
I would often go to open mics and, I get my fix, even when I did well, I would just kind of like my social anxiety would just kind of get the best of me.
Yeah.
I just kind of take off even, and not stick around and get to know the people. That's right, like the other comics and management. Like, are those or is it management that decides whether to like to get a hold of you, or if you want to do even like a small,
Yeah.
like do a feature bit or whatever?
Yeah, I would say that it's more than just doing a comedy show, because there is a, when you start doing open mics, you start going to comedy clubs, you realize that there's this little social niche. And the people there are, the comics, between the comics, the people who show up, the avid fans, and the management, there's this little social order that goes on. And it's important to be a part of that if you want to actually continue on and move forward. And a lot of the comics that even weren't performing, on a particular night would show up to see their friends perform in their little social group that they've seen perform over and over and over again, because it definitely is a social thing. So yeah, that's, if you show up and you perform and you just kind of duck out and nobody ever, they don't talk to you, they don't see you anymore, it's not going to get your name in the heads of people who are, obviously the audience is important, but another very important key to being able to perform again is knowing the people, the management, the people involved, the employees of the comedy club, the other comics. It's really the other comics that are going to wind up elevating you. And the reason why that is, because, okay, take somebody like, and this is the way this is gone. Matt Damon. You guys know Matt Damon, right? Matt Damon was never a stand-up comic. Well, he tried his hand at stand-up comic. But he had a lot of friends that he networked with when he was doing his, stand-up comedy. People like Damon Wayans and there's a lot of other people. And when he got famous, and they're like, okay, who can you recommend for these spots? Well, the people in his social group are the people that he recommended for that. So if you wind up, socializing with other people, other comics, they wind up getting their break. It's survival of the fittest in the entertainment world. It's almost like an evolution, because the more comedians and talented people you attach yourself to, the higher chance that you yourself have of getting some kind of break. Because if one of them gets picked and says, hey, you, awesome, Hollywood, come here. Now, 5 years later, when this guy's directing a film, he's going to remember you. He's going to remember your jokes. He's going to remember, and he's going to ask you to, hey, come on up here. So yeah, it's a very, very social thing. And a lot of people have wound up famous now because one out of their social group was picked to go on, and then that person didn't forget their friends. And they're like, yeah, these guys right here, these guys can bring some great new jokes, great new blood into this, I know, and they bring them in. Now they're famous too. So yeah, the social aspect is very important.
Yeah.
Any other questions regarding this particular thing?
Sort of on the same subject of
Yeah.
anxiety. I have anxiety-based stuttering.
Okay.
I understand, like, if I stutter really bad, I can just like, oh god, my brain's not getting the transmission from my to my mouth, blah. But like, is there ways I could like work on stuttering?
Yeah.
That I know of?
There are actually. There are ways that I had a college professor once who was he was a stutterer. He was my Western Civ teacher, and I didn't even know he was a stutterer until about 6 months after I'd started taking his courses, because he would go up and he would stand in front of people and there was not a stutter that would come out of him. He would go flowingly from one subject to the next, and he would sit there and talk about things, but he wouldn't even look at his notes, this guy. He knew everything in his head. But you go visit him in his office and he would stutter like crazy. And now I'm not a doctor, I'm definitely not a specialist on this, so this is something you should look up, but there's a method that I know of where you actually turn your words into a song. Because many stutterers, when they sing, they don't stutter. So if you can think of the words that you're saying as literally you're singing a song, then that tends to actually block out that kind of thing. Now, that's one instance I've heard of. Like I said, I'm not an expert, and I'm going to claim to be.
Yeah.
But I know that that has worked for many people.
Cool.
I would also recommend, I've had problems with this, like, often you talk a lot faster than you think you are, and sometimes you watch a recording, like, I can't believe how fast I was talking.
Yeah.
If you just slow down and make your, like, it's almost like a singing thing. If you deliberately make yourself slow down, that can help a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I actually used to stutter like 5 times worse than I currently do.
Exactly.
Well, a lot of people get on stage and they're nervous, so they want to blow through all of their lines as fast as they can so they can get off.
Yeah.
And I don't mean in that way. I saw you snicker. I saw you snicker at that. Came in. I saw that. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I was.
I do small
I'm
panels.
one
and
good
stuff.
eye on you, okay?
I do small panels and stuff, so I do public speaking, but I imagine that doing a stand-up comedy routine would be like a whole nother level of public speaking.
It is. You do eventually get very used to it. In fact, and I'm happy to say this now because I remember all the years that I would be sitting backstage, literally trying to convince myself not to throw up before I got on stage. At this point, I can literally walk onto Anthrocon stage in front of 4,000 people and be absolutely comfortable. I can feel like I'm on my couch at home. It's taken a long time to get to that point,
Yeah.
but it really amounts to a confidence in yourself, confidence in your material, and realizing that people are not going to crucify you for making any little mistake.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would recommend looking that up. That's a good therapy, I've heard. And you were right as well. A lot of people do try to blast through the material. That's something that Bad Habit Rabbit, Black Habit. Anyway, sounds like a part of devil worshipping or something.
I was thinking it's sort of like heroin.
Yeah, it's a black habit. I had a black habit. So, no, Bad Habit Rabbit. That's one thing that we had to talk to him at first because very good at addressing the crowd. We loved his material. We loved his tone, his pacing, but he was going way too fast. He wasn't stopping to emphasize because he knew what he was going to say. But he had to understand that some things needs to be emphasized. You know, it's like if there's a point that, you know, say you have a routine and the routine that you're doing depends on the fact that people, you know that the car that you were driving was red. It could happen, right? So here I am, and you know we get in this car. The car's a red car, and we take off. And we do this thing. But they need to. What you need to do, realize, is slow down and say, so we get into this car. It was a red car, and we take off driving. You know, you have to pace yourself. You have to deliver it in small chunks, small, edible, chewable chunks of dialogue that people can get. Because if you try and blow through it, you are not emphasizing what needs to be important, and that's part of timing. And timing is major in comedy. Timing is like one of the most important things ever in comedy. Is the timing. You know, you can change the entire outcome of a joke by the pace at which you say it. So that's really, really important. Any more questions for the comedy stuff? Because we're not even at a part.
You're okay because your other panel doesn't start until 3:30.
What time is it?
What
were you
saying?
Oh, so I'm still on this panel.
Yeah,
we got
time.
Where's my other card anyway? It's not here. Where did it go?
No. Did you drink it?
No, I didn't drink it. I didn't. No. Where's my other? Okay.
Someone stole it.
Which one of y'all? No, I'm serious. It was like I put them both down here. I swear I
Is
did.
it on the stage somehow? Like,
be under.
Not fall under the stage. It fell under the curtains. No.
Under a draft.
Well, if it did, then I'm just gonna have to try to remember what was on my card. That's fine. See, this is the kind of thing that we have to deal with is, oops, notes are gone, gotta make it up as we go on. And I'm reaching in here like this is my jacket, but it's not because I wore the lab coat today.
Oh, but with the stuttering thing,
Is
there
it
was
still-
actually on
Hey.
America's Got Talent or something like that. There was actually a comedian on there who had, from an accident or something, a really bad stuttering problem, but he was a comedian. And when he came out on stage and he's like, yes, I have this stutter. And he worked with it. He was like,
Yeah, you actually, I saw
yes,
that.
yes, I stutter, but it's part of what I do. I'm going
He
to
actually-
incorporate
yeah.
this stuff.
He actually incorporated his stutter into his jokes. You know, and it was really, really groovy the way he did it too, because, you know,